Greetings, fellow gamers, and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including Detective Pikachu, which we'll be getting into right now. I'm Sam Quattro, and today I'm joined by Dylan Hysen.
Hello.
Alex Bonilla.
Mr. Mime.
Oh my god.
Ugh.
And Beatriz Mourad.
Pika Pika!
Yeah.
So, as I said, today we're going to be discussing Detective Pikachu, which is animation. You know, I think if one of your main characters is animated and there's a mile-long list of animation credits in the credits, it counts. So that's what we're going to be talking about. But before we get into that, you can find out more about this podcast at overlyanimated.com, and you can just subscribe to us on iTunes at overlyanimated.com/iTunes, or on YouTube at youtube.com/overlyanimated. And before we get into the spoilery sort of discussions, we're just going to give some general impressions about the Detective Pikachu, who he is, what he's about, what we feel about him and the movie in general. Just some opening notes before we get into that. This movie's been like a couple years in the making, I think. I've read things about, since 2016. Danny DeVito was always a favorite to be the primary character, but, nothing happened. Directed by Rob Letterman, who also directed Shark Tale and Monsters vs. Aliens. Alex Hirsch was apparently involved in the writing. All that good stuff. So, Dylan, what do you think about the Pikachu? Have you been interested in Pokemon previously? Did you like the movie? Did you think it was good for other people who don't really know what Pokemon's about? What do you think?
What do you think about the Pikachu? Is that the main question we're trying to answer here?
What do you think about the movie, and what do you think about Pikachu as well? Both. What do you think? Just general takes.
Well, I like Pikachu, but he's not my favorite Pokemon. No, okay. This is a good movie. I don't know. Are we also doing background with Pokemon? I'm a big Pokemon fan, so I was really looking forward to this movie for a while, and I think it delivered a lot of enjoyment. I don't think it's the greatest movie ever. I think you'll find more positive takes later in the panel, but I did think it was pretty good, and I personally really liked it. I think the world building is the thing that stands out about this movie. It's like the CGI animated Pokemon interspersed with this live action noir city and expanded world was pretty masterfully executed on. It looks fantastic. It was really immersive, and just seeing all the Pokemon as a fan was like the best part. Just seeing 50 odd different Pokemon. It was really, really fun. I think the story itself is not that great. The characters are not that great, but it's also not that important. I think the important thing is the Pokemon and all of that. And when the Pokemon were on screen, I was really happy. And when humans were there, it was not as good, but that's okay because Pikachu's there most of the time. So yeah, I think this was a good movie, and I liked it a lot.
Interesting. Alex, what do you think?
So, background, for most of my life have not cared about Pokemon, only because I now know you wonderful people and you guys like Pokemon, so I have attempted to be more in tune with that universe. And so now when I watch, I at least know a couple of the basic Pokemon, but still not. I have not watched any Pokemon movies or animes before this, so I have no clue what connection this has to anything else in the Pokemon universe. So with no real Pokemon context, I quite enjoyed this movie a lot. I am a sucker for when I notice that things are just being very ambitious, and this feels ambitious in terms of building a whole just the whole CGI library of Pokemon characters and making them appealing to watch and giving them their personality stuff on the big screen, and it all worked really well. I think that the aesthetic of this movie is fantastic. And Pikachu himself, I think it was very compelling. I know that there were doubts beforehand about Ryan Reynolds handling the role, and I think that Pikachu was very fun to follow around. I agree that once we get deeper into it, we can probably pick apart the story elements and maybe figure out that it's there's some cliches that we need to dig into. But on the whole, like just the general vibe of it is just very strange, and I think it uses that to its benefit. I think that there are moments in the music that are pretty stellar. I think that there are some human characters that have their moments as well. So I definitely think that this is a very great movie, especially considering just how crazy the idea sounds on paper, or like when it was first announced. It's like, why is this the first like live action Pokemon movie? But it works. I think it works.
It does definitely work, and we do have a lot of Pokemon fans. Plug for our Discord where we often talk about Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beatrice, what do you think?
I really love this movie. I love it so much. Like since I was 4 or 5 years old, I've been wanting to live in a world where Pokemon exist, and for an hour and 40 minutes, I got to experience that. And to me, that's like priceless. Like to be able to capture that emotion to me makes it like one of the top movies of the year. Sure, certain things are predictable. Are the characters the most interesting? Maybe, perhaps not. But I mean, the fact that it was able to capture the magic of Pokemon when so many other movies try to do that when they're adapting something, whatever it may be, whether it's a book or a video game or anything really. Sometimes they fail to capture that magic, and this movie does that, and that's the hardest thing to do. And it did it in droves, and I loved it. And I haven't seen at least in movie form, in live action form, I hadn't seen a kids movie, a family oriented movie in a long time. So to see them all being so earnest was so strange. So it was so nice. I was like, oh wow, there is joy in the world, and there is people who just want to do good things, and they don't have to they don't have like a chip on their shoulder or anything. So yeah, I had a blast, and yeah, I'm just excited to talk about Detective Pikachu.
Hell yeah.
I just want to chime in. I agree with Beatrice that this is one of the most wholesome movies. I feel like
it really is.
Kind of dark towards the end. I don't know.
It
does.
But on the whole, like it. Once again, like I hear Ryan Reynolds is involved in a movie. I think, okay, we're gonna slip some edgy humor in here, and there is a little bit of that. But like on the whole, like it just feels much more wholesome than I was expecting a Detective Pikachu movie to be.
Yeah, and I think Dylan, were you the one that mentioned that you had this kind of noir city kind of feel to the actual setting? And then, but it's still, so yeah, there is this kind of slightly, you kind of see in the creation of this city, you can kind of see some elements of like Blade Runner or something in there, and like it's so whatever, and kind of, it seems like it's the future, but it's not, I don't know. But it's such a colorful movie too. I'm so used to, like, we live in a time when cinematographers get complaints because the things that they're doing are too freaking dark. Well, now here's a movie that's not afraid of color, and it's because of Pokemon and them allowing them to be colorful. That's just so great, and I miss things that are vibrant, and it was such a joy to see that on screen.
Pokemon really represents all the colors of the rainbow, don't they?
It really does.
Yeah, good takes, everybody. So, for me, personally, I've been a huge Pokemon fan ever since I was a kid. I would say like 4 or 5 years old, whenever the first games came out. I had the cards, I had the VHS tapes, I had all the promotional items. I was really indoctrinated into the cult of Pokemon when I was younger. And then, as I got older, I kind of grew out of it, and then I came back around to it when I was in college. And I was super hyped for Detective Pikachu. I was ready for this movie. I wanted it so bad. And it was going to be the greatest 104 minutes of my life. And it was. I would say during my time in the theater, it was beautiful. And I felt everything that was happening so hard. Even if, some of it was a little bit more bland than I personally would have liked. I cried, I laughed, I smiled like an idiot. It was great. And for me, being such a huge fan of the franchise, I really felt that this movie was perfect in that way for people who, in their 20s, getting older, looking back on their past, like, hey, I remember that. That's cool. I like that Pokemon. Yada, yada, yada. I will say, a day later, we're recording this the Saturday opening weekend that the movies come out. Looking back on it, out of the theater and, like, writing the whole entire plot summary down, I'm not as hype about it. The story is kind of a little bit weird, if not, really predictable at some points, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with a movie going where you think it's gonna go. And I think that's perfectly okay, but there are some plot elements that are kind of shrug. Why did they do that? That's kind of weird. I don't really like that, but it is what it is. And I definitely think to echo Dylan's sentiment earlier, that it kind of builds up the world to be this great miracle world where Pokemon and humans just love each other, and it's beautiful. It's great. Love it. 10 out of 10. Would recommend. Okay, now that we got general takes out of the way, let's move on more into the spoilery side of the discussion. If you haven't seen the movie yet, I suggest you stop the podcast, go out, see it, come back later, yada yada yada. So, guys, Detective Pikachu, Pokemon, what do you think?
Isn't that the question we just answered?
Yes, it is.
But specific Pokemon?
What do you think about specific Pokemon? What do you think about the roles of Pokemon in this world? It's kind of weird that you have a Pokemon movie where there isn't too much battling, and actually battling in the world, the city that was set in Rhyme City, it's declared illegal. What do you think about that?
No, they still managed to get battling in one scene with the underground thing. But yeah, it's just very weird that this is like the first live action Pokemon movie, because it's more so because Detective Pikachu is just the stupid weird character.
He's not stupid.
This is conceptually, this is stupid. This is like not what Pokemon's about. But I like this as the world they're living in. I think this it worked with the visual ambition of the movie. Seeing the Pokemon can't be in Pokeballs; they have to be out roaming around. So you see them moving everywhere. So I think that like it really plays to the movie's strengths. Them like helping everywhere in the city. And I mean, we go outside the city, you see them elsewhere too. But yeah, I think this works well with the medium that we're building this in.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of discussion just throughout the years that Pokeballs are cruel and unusual punishment. Mm-hmm. And that's always been a thing with the Pokemon franchise. Like, the Pokemon like being in the Pokeballs? Do they like fighting for their quote-unquote
I think
masters?
canonically, yes, is the answer.
Yeah, but that's like, it's like a weird space that I feel weird about.
Well, the Cubone did not like the Pokeball
in
the beginning.
Alex,
I mean, that's the whole point of Ash's Pikachu, is that Pikachu doesn't like being in the Pokemon.
Yeah.
Pokeball.
That's true.
Well, I'll say that because in my head, that's the idea I have of Pokemon. It's like, okay, they battle and they like they're like stuck in the balls, and like you said, there's like the kind of general thing of, well, like, do they have their own autonomy? Like, that's kind of weird, right? Which is why I think it's a good decision if you want to make this for the general audience and try to bring in people who don't care that much about Pokemon, to leave that out and like kind of like push that to the side. It's like, let's just have Pokemon be their own creatures, live alongside the humans. Like, that's a lot more palatable than sticking to the mechanic that the anime and the games have established. And I will say that this movie opens with that scene of Tim and his friend catching the Cubone, and like that's very, very what I think of Pokemon, and it felt weird to see that in real life. It's like this is something that should be animated. Like, I don't like this. And then
really,
later,
I loved that.
No,
that was the greatest opening ever.
Well, see, that scene made me uncomfortable for the rest of the movie. It's like, oh, okay, this isn't starting off great. But then once we switch to city, and it's like, oh, they all live together. It's like, okay, now I'm back in. And then later we have that cutaway of like, oh, fighting is illegal, and they like show the fight for like 10 seconds, and it looks so cheesy and cartoony. And I wonder if that's done on purpose to like contrast like what people think of Pokemon fighting as a concept versus what this movie is aiming for, which is something a lot like bigger and more utopian and just something that's easier to swallow. So like I really think that that was a good idea on the part of like planning this movie to just leave Pokemon fighting to the side, like letting that to handle that somewhere down the road if you're going to like do a universe whatever, but your first movie cannot be Pokemon fighting because then it's just too close to like what Pokemon already is. You need to be different.
I think it's a weird decision in the like it maybe Alex said it makes sense. I think it's weird in the context of the Pokemon franchise because they've kind of doubled down on the catching mechanic with Pokemon Go and then the Let's Go games on the Switch. So it's like it's entirely about just throwing the Pokeballs. Like that's what everyone is doing with Pokemon these days. So it's interesting that they didn't care about that. Like they just kind of are going for what maybe worked best as the movie and not like brand synergy. I guess that's good.
Yeah, I guess so. To me, it felt more like they wanted to emphasize the bond that people have with Pokemon. And if you just have the ball catcher mechanic to a general audience, it really just feels like you're enslaving little creatures to be your best friends, you know? Whereas when we get to Rhyme City, you know, everybody has like a Pokemon quote-unquote companion who's just hanging out with them. And I think that's really cool. And to me, that's the bonding and the friendship that you make with Pokemon. That is the heart of the entire multimedia franchise. That's something that's been hammered in the anime and the games, in every single part of Pokemon, that Pokemon are friends with people. And I think that's something that the movie did really well, and I really felt the connection that, you know, Psyduck and Lucy had, that Detective Yoshida and his Snubbull had. I really felt that, and I think that was a really good angle that they took. And I think the whole battle mechanics, they're really, I guess, sort of played out in my mind. They are like the main focus of the franchise, as Dylan said, and we're getting into the mid-20s to 30th year of this. We gotta focus on something else. And in that point, I think adapting Detective Pikachu to a feature film as opposed to, say, I don't know, Pokemon Go as a feature film, that would not happen.
They could have just done an Ash Ketchum movie, right? Like they didn't even have Ash in it.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think, reading the whole, you know, development of this film, that was a possibility, but they were like, nah, let's not do that. So yeah, I think it was good. So guys, what do you think about the characters in this film? The human characters, the Pokemon characters, who worked for you, who didn't? I know earlier we were kind of saying that the human characters are kind of weak. Can you talk more on that, Dylan?
I mean, I don't think so. If the question is who worked, who didn't work, I think they all worked. I don't think I didn't dislike anyone. It's just that they're shallow characters, which is fine. I think this is a movie that didn't really need that in depth of character. But I mean, like I especially like the female lead, but I don't think she had much characterization at all. So I was disappointed in that. I think the main character is he Tim? I think he's pretty good. But I didn't necessarily feel the most connection to him. I think Detective Pikachu, this is like the character. This is the thing that everyone's talking about before the movie. I was very skeptical of Ryan Reynolds voicing weird fuzzy Pikachu, but I thought this character was sympathetic during the movie and did work. So I liked the Detective Pikachu character himself a lot more than I thought I would. And then other than that in the movie, everyone else is basically really shallow except for the main villain, who I think is I guess pretty interesting.
Really? I thought he was kind of like by the numbers. Like you could see that coming from a mile away.
So the twist you definitely can see coming, yeah. I think like the character itself, there's a little bit of depth there. I mean, like he's the one that establishes this concept that we're all praising of like humans and Pokemon living together, and he turns out to be evil. Like, are his ideas still valid? I think that's kind of interesting.
The moral implications of Pokemon. Believe it or not, I think this movie made me like the character of Detective Pikachu less.
Well, how could you like him more, given how high you were coming
I
in?
know, right? I think, for me personally, it was just the amount of really tepid jokes that they gave him. Like, oh, he's a wisecracking smart mouth. Like, that works if you're, I don't know, in a 70s detective show, which this movie is and isn't, I guess. But for me personally, it just wasn't to my taste, and I kind of just felt like Tim was the primary anchor of this movie, and Detective Pikachu was just kind of, I'm Detective Pikachu, blah blah blah, I like coffee, yada yada yada. Alex, what'd you think?
I mean, I'm with Dylan that I think that Detective Pikachu is the star here, and he is the funniest of the main cast. The jokes that they give him are kind of, because they have to be as wholesome as possible. It's like they can't really edge too close. Although I think there are like a couple of like good ones that he lets off. But so I think that and he also like nails the emotional moments. So like when he has to like be like, also the animation is great. Like there are moments like when they make Pikachu like wet, or when they make him sad. Like it all shows in his eyes. So Detective Pikachu is great. The humans, I mean, I don't want to be mean, but like Justice Smith, as his acting in this movie, like kind of turned me off at times. Like he was it felt very turned off. I don't know, or like when he needed to be emotional, it felt very stilted for me. I don't know if that's just me, but like just his performance does not work for me. And Catherine Newton as Lucy, like she's just very high energy, you know, like that's kind of her whole thing. And they give her like one brief moment of like being sympathetic to Tim, but other than that, she's just full on like reporter lady, needs to get the scoop. So there's not much that she gets to do, but I think with what she's given, she's doing a lot. And yeah, Bill Nye, like he's just a good villain actor. Like he does the Davy Jones in Pirates of the Caribbean. He does Rattlesnake Jake and Rango.
Oh my God.
Which will be mentioned again later in this podcast, by the way. So so he's great, and I kind of like Detective Yoshida as well. Like although he's also like the same thing, like, you know, hardened police chief, but like I think that he does better in those conversations with Tim, of like dealing with the dad and like kind of being weirded out by the relationship that's going on there. So he's doing the best with what he can. So human characters, it's hit or miss, but the Pokemon and especially Detective Pikachu are great.
I think Justice Smith did fine. I think he's not working with a lot here with this role. And I think he played the emotional moments fine. The rest of it, there wasn't a lot to that character, but I feel like the most impressive thing is his acting off of Pikachu, because that's a character that doesn't exist, right? So like I feel like
and that's kind of the thing you always need to keep in mind too. Like they are acting towards CGI characters, and like that's always a difficult task, no matter what. So,
and
like,
I thought he did great with that.
Yeah, there's definitely a curve there for sure.
He was the third best thing of this movie, I personally would say.
The Justice Smith?
Yes.
What were number 1 and 2?
Lucy was number 1. Number 2 was I don't know. I'll think about it later.
Psyduck.
Maybe.
Okay,
so now we are joined by our best friend Andy Potter, who has also seen this movie. Hi Andy, how are you?
Yes, I saw this movie.
So we're still in the beginning of the discussion. Do you want to just say your general takes on the movie, what you felt, etc.?
This movie was very fun. I was very not excited about the plot, but like everything other than the plot and the characters and like the movie itself, like I really liked. I liked seeing every Pokemon that, like every time there was a new Pokemon, I got super excited. Every time there was a Growlithe, I was like, oh, there he is, the good pup.
Same.
there were a lot of Growlithes, yeah.
There were a lot of Growlithes. I was very sad for Dylan that Eevee was only in it for like 5 seconds.
No, I haven't gotten to that rant yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was very upset that there was no Klefki, even though they specifically had a moment where they brought out keys, and I'm like, oh, is it going to be him? And it wasn't.
Andy, we saw the like circle Pokemon, like right in one of the initial shots of the city. You see these circle things in the sky, and they're like shadowed, and I'm like, oh my god, is it the key thing that Andy? No, it's just the flower one.
Yeah, and they never get like a clear shot of it. I don't even know why. Like they're always blurry. You know what I mean? Like there's like 20 shots of the lay Pokemon, but they're never like straight on. They're always blurry, and I'm like,
I think there's one thing that I could clearly identify it, but yeah, it was mostly in the background.
Yeah, it was strange, but I don't know. I don't think this movie works except for the fact that it's Pokemon. If it wasn't Pokemon, I would not care, but because it's Pokemon, it's just so much fun. I don't know. It's really strange. Like they really leaned into the fact that this is a world of Pokemon, and it was really fun.
I think that's a great question, a good discussion point, because a lot of the critic reviews are like, this is good for Pokemon fans, but I didn't like it because I don't care about Pokemon.
Yeah.
So what Andy's saying is like, if it wasn't Pokemon, it wouldn't work. Well, does that matter, right? Like, isn't this inherently a Pokemon movie? Does it matter that non-Pokemon fans? Alex loved it, so that's a counter to this. But is someone who's not into Pokemon not liking it a problem?
I think that's a little.
Well,
Go ahead.
I'll say that I think we've all agreed that the Pokemon part of this is the strongest part. So I think that even if you don't care about Pokemon, the movie is making an effort to make you care about the Pokemon and making you believe that they're like equal beings in this universe and like they have their own fun quirks and characteristics. So if the movie fails at making you care about the Pokemon, then yes, the movie fails. I think that is actually a fair assumption to say.
Yeah. And I think that this movie is a 64% currently on Rotten Tomatoes. I think that's like pretty low. I think the critics have been pretty harsh on this movie overall. I'd say it deserves to be in the 80s or so.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of different critic takes by this. I've been saying, oh yes, this is a great movie to introduce you to Pokemon even if you're not a fan. I've been seeing people like, this movie is complete trash by the numbers. It's lame. Nobody cares, etc., etc. And it's hard for me to take my nostalgia goggles off personally and sort of see it for what it is.
Well, I saw this one tweet saying that it got a lot of traction today, saying like all these critics are like, why is this watching Pokemon such a prerequisite for this Detective Pikachu movie when the recent Avengers movie had 20 precursor movies?
Yeah, I've also seen that tweet.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, you have to watch Pokemon to watch this movie. That's okay if that's a prereq.
Honestly, you don't really need to engage that much with Pokemon. You could just, like, go to the Pokemon's Wikipedia page, like, oh, yeah, there's these little monsters and they live in balls.
Yeah, I think all you need to know... Yeah, for this movie, all you really need to do is, like, have some kind of connection to the cuteness of Pokemon, and then, like, you're set. And even if you haven't played more than just, like, the first, like, generation, like, I think there's a ton here where you're just like, oh, that's nostalgic for me. They really give you Pokemon for every generation, and it's just like, hey, if you like it, you like it, and that's fine.
Definitely.
Also, like, what is so wrong about making a Pokemon movie that's a Pokemon movie?
Like, and
I don't know. I just have an issue with people. I mean, this is my issue with, like, a lot of, like, the critic circles and film criticism, because I just feel like they're very snooty, and they just think, oh, this needs to transcend this, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what is so wrong about genre? What is so wrong about a Pokemon movie? And what is so wrong about... there is nothing wrong with this. Like, if you take the Pokemon out of this movie, this wouldn't be a movie. Like, they wouldn't have made this movie. They would have made something else. So it's like, to me, that's a stupid argument and a stupid like a stupid thinking exercise. Because it's like, oh, well, if you take the Pokemon out, we wouldn't care. And it's like, well, yeah, that's the point. Like, we're making a Pokemon movie. It's like, I don't know.
It's like saying if you take out the bending from Avatar, there's nothing there. It's like
yeah, that's the story. That's the world.
I was impressed how much they like made this a movie for Pokemon fans. Like I think there's a lot more catching up they could have done in the beginning on mechanics and stuff, and they also could have introduced every Pokemon. But there's Pokemon there, and we don't even have to say their names. Like it definitely felt like a movie for Pokemon fans, which I think makes sense. It's like Pokemon is the biggest media franchise in the history of the world, so you don't really need to intro too much here.
There's
also, sorry.
It's okay. There's like over 800 Pokemon. You can't introduce all of them, Dylan. Jeez.
Yeah, well, they use 50 for the movie, apparently.
It's okay. Anyway, Beatrice, what were you gonna say?
But I will say also, it's not as if this movie was only about Pokemon. The movie did take time to make us, like, get to know Tim. Like, it spent time interweaving flashbacks to him. There were clear moments that were about him. Whether or not someone cares about him because his name isn't Ash, that's another question. But they did put in the effort. Whether the audience responds to it is subjective. I responded to it. I think Tim was great in the movie. But and I think Lucy was great. I think a lot of the heroes were great. For me, the biggest one was the villain. I was like, okay, you were kind of obvious. But in terms of them, they were good. I think it was a solid film. I think just people are. I just think honestly, people have no souls or hearts and are just like, oh, Pokemon, this is beneath me, but I have to review this because I'm a film critic, and it's just like, shut up. If you don't care and you're just gonna be snooty, I don't want to hear your opinion.
Yeah, I think if the criticism is it should be it's too much for Pokemon fans, that's bad. That being said, if it's a review that says like the plot wasn't good, so I'm gonna give it a negative review, I think that's fair personally. But yeah.
Why not? Honestly, who's to say?
But I also think they're kind of missing the point of the movie, if that's the main point of your review. But yeah.
This really feels like a movie that's going to, if this does well, it's going to do a lot more for any like more movies that are Pokemon based. Because now they have those 50 Pokemon that they've like rendered, and they can like
it's opening up the door to the Detective Pikachu cinematic universe.
Yeah, and that's not even a joke though. Like I think that like
they started writing a sequel already.
Yeah, and
which doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Like I don't think they should make a sequel to this movie. I think they should just keep making like one-offs like in Pokemon. Because like I didn't care about the plot. I just cared that we were in the Pokemon world and I wanted more of that.
As of this recording, the movie's pacing for 55 to 60 million for opening weekend for the US. So I think that should be good enough to get some stuff going here.
Which is also like again really solid opening for it's a franchise movie, but if people are this stingy about it being for Pokemon fans, that's like really solid for a movie that's very specifically catered to like a Pokemon fan.
And opening 3 weeks from Endgame, like that's insane.
Yeah, we'll see if it beats out Endgame for the weekend. It might not.
Yeah,
which is crazy, but yeah.
Yeah.
You know what are Pokemon but superheroes? Really?
Did this movie even like broach the topic of whether people eat Pokemon in this world?
Oh my
I don't
God.
think they.
Okay.
What?
Okay.
That's where you want to go with this?
No.
I know. Kate leaned over to me and asked because there was somebody eating meat, and he asked like, "Is that a Pokemon that they're eating?" Listening in the background on like the street, like Charmander was like helping cook something.
The answer is no. The movie did not talk about animals. That's not a thing that we got into here.
It's ambiguous.
Yeah.
Who's to say, really? Personally, I lean more on one end than the other, but you'll have to follow me on Twitter for that, I guess, @CoolNCR. So let's get a little bit more into the plot here, since we haven't super touched on it. Like we've said before, it is kind of a little bit tropey. You can kind of see where it's going. So basically, we got this guy, Tim, played by Justice Smith. He's this dude, he's like an insurance whatever, who cares. He's all hurt and upset inside, and his dad dies, supposedly, and he has to go back to settle his affairs. And then, push comes to shove, there's a secret conspiracy with a gas called R, and it's really okay, and then Detective Pikachu shows up, yada yada yada. Basically, Justice Smith, what's the woman who plays Lucy's name? Catherine something?
Newton. Yeah, that's the actress's name. Yeah.
Yes, Catherine Newton. Justice Smith, Catherine Newton, Psyduck, and Detective Pikachu all go off on a road trip to figure out what the plot is. Turns out the main villain, Howard, he's trying to merge the souls of Pokemon and humans, and it's really weird.
He's trying to evolve humanity.
Okay, you know what? It was weird, Dylan.
Did you catch the evolve thematics?
Oh my
the
God.
evolution thematics?
He literally said evolve.
So that's just like the general plot thing, and then Mewtwo comes in, and
Mewtwo's a big part of the plot.
Mewtwo's a big part of every plot. He comes in and Deus Ex Machina's everything. The end. Also, spoilers, since we're in the spoiler section, Ryan Reynolds is Detective Pikachu, like, literally,
Yes.
he's Justice Smith's dad, Tim's dad.
That's most what I want to talk about, by the way.
Yeah, and his Mewtwo, somehow, in the beginning, he put, Harry, Tim's dad's, soul essence.
Because Harry was dying, so he put his soul into the Pikachu.
Yeah.
But it's not just his soul, it's his entire body. Like, that makes no sense.
Yeah, I don't, okay. Because he does revive his body at the end.
But yeah, he puts his soul essence into Pikachu, and that's why Detective Pikachu has amnesia and can't remember anything. And it opened up this big plot hole of why Tim can't remember his dad's voice, even though it's coming out of Pikachu's body. Anyway, I was shook and unhappy by this revelation that Ryan Reynolds in the flesh is here.
Yeah. That was so. I thought that was really cathartic, actually, seeing Ryan Reynolds at the end of the movie. Like,
Yeah.
regardless of the twist, I thought it like seeing him physically really worked.
That was a bigger twist than the actual twist. Like I didn't know that going in, so
Yeah.
that was like the one moment that actually got me to like open my mouth. Like, what?
I think it was telegraphing where that was going because they never showed Harry's face. They would show like the back
Yes,
of
it
his
was
head.
always a silhouette. Yeah.
So
Well,
I
I
was
didn't.
like-
I didn't connect it. I was like, why aren't they showing him? It's because he'll be
Yeah.
revealed at the end. But I didn't know it'd be literally him. But yeah, we predicted. We did predict this possibility. Like you can see the two things coming: his dad being Detective Pikachu, and the Bill Nye being the villain. You at the beginning of the movie, you can guess that. Then I feel like the movie takes you off the scent for a long time. Like it tries to get you off that. So I think it was kind of work in that regard. But also, I want to talk about the fact that Detective Pikachu doesn't exist. That's my biggest reaction to the end of this movie because.
Wow.
Isn't it the case that Detective Pikachu isn't real because he was just his dad and Pikachu Blatty? Isn't Detective Pikachu gone forever now? How are we going to do a
Yes.
sequel? There's no more Detective Pikachu. It was a lie. There's no talking Pokemon. This was just his dad and
Okay,
Pokemon.
so we are omitting the fact that the movie was subtitled Pokemon: Detective Pikachu. So next movie could be Pokemon: I don't know,
no, they said it's a Detective
investigative
Pikachu sequel.
investigative journalist Psyduck or something.
And look, it was established that Mewtwo merged the dad and the Pikachu
Mewtwo could do it
together,
again.
so it can always happen again, right?
Mewtwo has this power,
We
yeah.
have the setup here.
What do you guys
Son,
think?
I need to go back in the Pikachu.
Yeah.
I need to go back. Put me back in the Pikachu.
No,
Mewtwo.
shut up.
Please.
What do you guys think about Mewtwo just being this godly being
I think
throughout
that's
the
fine.
movie?
I think that works. On
I
the
think it's
floor.
fine.
I think it is also fine. It really calls back to the first Pokemon movie,
Which
Pokemon
they even say.
Mewtwo Strikes Back. That's the first Pokemon movie.
I know
And-
this movie is like deferential to the first movie. Like it's trying to. I don't know. I'm a little tired of Mewtwo being so relevant to the plot like this, but it is trying to pay homage to the first movie.
He's the end all be all.
I think
of
the issue
Pokemon.
is that all the other like legendary Pokemon they could have used are actually supposed to be like godlike figures. Mewtwo's just really strong and made by man, which I think is easier to sell to an audience than like this Pokemon is literally God.
You know, in like a gritty real movie, like a
Yeah.
man making this all powerful Pokemon, that does really work as a plot. Yeah.
It's like the MCU, right? They had to do Iron Man first and Captain America, and then you get to Thor once you've like established like
But I mean, like-
they're like heroes, but then they're also gods.
But I mean, Iron Man is like Iron Man is like Klefki, TBH. Like this, like that's different. Like I'm saying, Iron Man is just like a C-list hero, Dylan. Like it's just he was made really, really popular by one good movie that they're like, oh, Iron Man's cool now.
I guess so.
Yeah, like that's what it is. Like Mewtwo is like
talk-
Spider-Man. Like he's gonna be like good no matter where they put him.
I'm surprised Sam isn't jumping in on this discussion. She knows a lot about the. No,
Yeah.
Mew's talked a lot about in this movie that
Yeah, there
is
was no
not
Mew.
not
That
seen.
was surprising.
Yeah, not seen though.
What do you mean Sam isn't jumping in on this discussion? I don't care about Marvel.
I'm saying that's what I'm saying. That's why you
Oh
weren't.
my god. Whatever. Okay. My point is, I thought it was perfectly acceptable that Mewtwo is just God, essentially, and can wipe everybody's memories and fix everything, considering that is what Mewtwo has always done throughout the past 20 or so years.
Now, can I ask, is the merging of souls an established thing in Pokemon lore?
Okay,
No.
so there are these series of games called Pokemon Mystery Dungeon.
Oh right.
And in those games, I've only played some of the first one. But in those games, humans can turn into Pokemon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like, I'll say that like up to that point, the plot is kind of predictable. But the actual thing of introducing that you can combine Pokemon and humans is kind of out of the box. Like I was taken aback. Like, oh, okay, that's the evil plan. Okay.
Yeah, so it's been established that it can happen in other Pokemon medium. But the thing, it doesn't really make sense in this movie because the Argas doesn't do that earlier, so why does it do that now? I don't understand.
No, they explained that
Oh my God.
Mewtwo is able to do it if the Pokemon are crazed, and you can automatically make them crazed with the R.
If they're really high, they're really easy to like.
That is so convoluted.
It's a stupid that's the issue, because the R thing is from the video game. Well, it should be known, most of the basic plot is adapted from the video game. Also, people are calling this the best video game movie ever.
It probably is.
That's still true. Like, just because there's no good video game movie.
Yeah, it literally is adapted from the obscure 3DS game. But no, the R thing is from the game. But yeah, they just using that to facilitate the plot twist they made up, which is the Mewtwo switch it. But it just doesn't connect. Like, why does Mewtwo need to have the gas to switch the thing? It shouldn't. It's dumb.
Yeah, it's so dumb I didn't even remember it. Beatrice, what do you think about all this?
Well, you make some good points. To be honest, I didn't at the moment, and I think I was the one who saw this movie the earliest, so I've had the most time with it. And I can honestly say I didn't really think any of this stuff was that crazy. I was like, oh yeah, of course. I was like, yes, of course. The soul's in there. Mewtwo can just do this. Of course. This makes total sense. So yeah, I was totally on board. I was so game. This is probably the most open-minded I've been with any movie in my life, and I'm not mad. I'm happy. I'm okay. I'm content with it. And if we can just like the next movie, can it be the one with like Entei and the little girl? That would be great.
So Beatrice accepts the existence of souls in all media. Good to know.
Look, if Steven Universe can have fusions and Dragon Ball Z can have fusions,
yeah, you have a point.
Fuse with humans.
I don't have an issue. Yeah, I don't think I have an issue with the Pokemon and the human evolution. I thought that would like especially work thematically. I think it's like the tying it to the Argas that like didn't work in the context of the plot. I also want to say my problems with this movie's plot is not that it's predictable. I think I've been seeing a lot about that. It's tropey, it's predictable. I don't care if the movie's predictable. I have more of an issue that it wasn't interesting. Like that's the bigger problem. Like I think this movie.
Well, doesn't that go hand in hand though? Like if it's predictable, that means it's uninteresting.
But I mean, like,
it could be new, novel, and just still be boring. Like I don't think the tropiness is the issue. I think the movie puts the characters in uninteresting situations sometimes. Other times they're interesting. But I particularly have an issue with like this 10-minute sequence where they're like running to escape the falling Torterra.
Yeah.
Like that was so boring. Why did we do that? So like there's a few situations like that in the movie where it's just like these uninteresting action set pieces. And I'm like, and then we go from that scene with the Torterra, like immediately. And by the way, once we reveal that it's Torterra, I mean, it was obvious, but like you see like once you see them, it's like really good. We go from that to this like fantastic Bulbasaur sequence, which is like maybe the best of the movie. And like it's just because there's Pokemon there, and we didn't see that like the Torterra were the background, so we didn't see them. Like just have Pokemon on the screen, like seeing the Bulbasaur lead him to the Mewtwo. It's not like that was some brilliant plot thing, but it was fantastic to watch because there are these amazing Bulbasaur there.
Yeah. Also, I will agree. Yeah, I will agree that sequence needed to be shorter. But beyond that, I just feel like it could have been cooler if you just threw in a Pokemon that just does like Earthquake, and then that would be interesting. And it's a similar type of thing. Just have Pokemon attacking them. I think would have been a lot more interesting than just this like absent kind of thing where we know what's happening, but then they don't realize it until later, and it's like
And also, it has no connection to the end of the movie because, like, really, the Torterra being giant, like, what does that matter?
It's going to be in a sequel, obviously.
Yeah. Also, isn't it interesting that, like, while all this was happening, they were all freaking out and running, but there was no Pokemon around?
Right, exactly. I'm saying that sequence might have worked if you just stuck some Pokemon in there.
That might have.
Well, you had Psyduck.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, you just have to have like Bulbasaur running away and stuff like that. Like stuff like that. That's all you really need, and I think that scene works really well.
Yeah. Another issue, if we're doing random plot issues, I think is that we see the same hologram sequence, we see, like 5 different times with different aspects revealed to us, and it got a little tiring. I think seeing the same exact scene through hologram repeated a ton of times.
I was not a fan of that form of exposition, but towards the end, I was kind of like, sure, why not just have these super cool 3D 4D holograms, who cares, whatever. Even if it's like, oh, the holograms don't show everything that happened, TM, and it turns out Mewtwo isn't bad, whatever. Who cares?
Yeah, I think ultimately I don't care about what happened at that car crash. I like the twist itself is interesting. If like who's good, who's bad, Mewtwo good, Mewtwo like Mewtwo's raw, but like I don't think that movie ever convinced me that the crash itself was like an interesting thing, despite showing it a million times.
I think it also set up a lot of false leads. Like there were like 50 different false leads in this movie. At first, you think, oh, Harry's the good guy, and you know he was doing this undercover private eye work for Howard Bill Nye, the bad guy, who is not revealed to be the bad guy until later. Okay, and then you see him at the science building where they're keeping Mewtwo, and it's like, oh, is he working for the bad people who we do not know is Howard at this point? And then Pikachu and Mewtwo have a whole thing, like, before he's Detective Pikachu, this happens in the movie. You've seen it, hopefully. You're not listening to this if you haven't. And they have, like, a mind thing, and Mewtwo's like, oh, you showed me that humanity is evil. And that kind of makes you think, oh, did Pikachu kill Harry? And it's just, okay, why not? This is a mystery-ish movie. Why can't we have those things? But at the same time, looking back on it, I kind of felt like that was a little bit tiring to me personally, to sort of be like jerked around like I'm on a really small roller coaster that I don't like. I don't know, man. Didn't feel good.
I think it's interesting conceptually. I don't think it was executed that well. So I think one of the biggest issues with the movie is that Detective Pikachu being his dad is like a really interesting thing, but I feel like it didn't land particularly impactfully at the end. Like I think the execution of it was a little bit landed with a thud. Like it was like, okay, I guess that's a thing.
I disagree with that. I think that it was very, very wonderful to be like, hey, these people organically built a relationship together. And then it turns out like I could have had this with my dad because it is my dad and it's great.
I love the concept of it. And I think once I thought about it, I think it was really good. I think the moment itself. But the point being, I like what the movie did with where these are obvious things in the beginning, because I do think Bill Nye being the villain was an obvious possibility. But I think the movie does convince you that he's not, and that Detective Pikachu is not his dad, because you see him so many times. The movie does us, and I think I like conceptually. I like the make it something that makes sense as a twist, then lead you off the scent, then reveal that it actually is the thing at the end. But I think the execution in getting there was not, not necessarily that fun of a ride.
Would you be more willing to hang out with your dad if he was in a Pikachu?
Obviously.
I mean, you don't have that baggage, right?
Yeah.
One thing I want to bring up, like with this thing of like throwing you off the scent of who in the end is the final bad. There are two animated movies that do this a lot. Zootopia, which also includes a thing where there's like a smoke thing or a serum thing that makes the creatures go crazy and wild to like frame them or to use them for evil purposes. So Zootopia, and also Rango, because Rango is also an animated movie that tries to do this whole noir thing of like, ooh, who is the real bad guy? Oh, it ends up being the mayor who Rango was hired by in the first place. So I just want to say that those are two movies that I'm not sure that Detective Pikachu is doing like worse or better than them, but I'm just saying like this is a thing that happens a lot, and your mileage may vary depending on like how much patience you have with that kind of a story.
Alex, do you have any more Rango jellies to get out at this point in time?
Well, Bill Nye voices Rattlesnake Jake, and like he's a great villain there, and I think that he's a decent villain in this one. Like he gets good, especially when he's talking out of Mewtwo. Like his voice work is great. Let's see, any other Rango connections? And also the creature work in Rango is like aiming for like kind of the opposite thing, where they're trying to be like as photorealistic animally as possible, whereas this is like aiming to like be as fluffy and cute and like, but like still close enough to what the Pokemon look like to feel appealing. It's like just very different ideas of character design, and that's what makes animation great. That like you're able to work with something that exists and go in like totally different directions depending on your view of life and design.
Interesting.
So Zootopia is just a better version of this movie's plot.
No,
and
dislike.
I don't even like Zootopia that much, but it does it a bit. I think this movie is more appealing, but Zootopia does a better version of the plot, and Rango is a worse version of this movie's plot. So there you go.
Wow.
Oh my god.
Ouch.
Well, that's certainly a thing that Dylan just said that I don't particularly agree with, but he said it, so it's fine.
People love Zootopia, man.
I personally don't. Do we want to get into Pokemon designs at this point since Alex brought it up? Like, did you like any? Did any call out to you? What'd you think?
Yeah, let's do our favorites.
Yeah, can I say before we get into the designs, the plot, like the actual like plan of the bad guy, I was just like, he's a furry. Like that's like the literal thought that jumped into my
mind. Andy, no. Andy.
No, let's hear her out. I want to hear this.
Because like he just went, everyone wants to be an animal, right? And just shoved everyone's body. Like, why would anyone want to be like he gets to be Mewtwo, but everyone else gets to be a Pokemon that can't communicate with anybody. Like, you could be a Rattata. Like, that's it. Like, that's very different than being like, I'm gonna be Mewtwo, but after my body is falling apart. Like, it's a very different thing. Like, it reminded me of this scene from like the Spider-Man comics where there's this guy that's a pterodactyl, and he like. And Spider-Man's like, you could be curing cancer. But he's like, I want to be making dinosaurs, though. This makes no sense.
No, I agree. I agree with Howard in that Pokemon are clearly much cooler than humans, so they are a natural evolution to human bodies.
So you'd rather be Eevee than be human.
I mean, obviously.
Sure. What are
but
humans?
See, we should have the choice to do that. We shouldn't be forced by a floating human abomination to force us together.
You two an abomination.
That's what they keep calling it.
He's literally calling an abomination in like the game.
That's an insult.
But then why do they keep calling it that?
Mewtwo's valid campaign, okay? Like, this is the reason Mewtwo is always so angry and doing stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, goodness gracious. Well, what are humans but the original Pokemon, to be honest?
It's true.
I mean,
Okay.
In this world, it makes sense that people would be Pokemon too. It's just, we're just different.
Pokemon designs, what do you guys think? Beatrice, you go first.
Pokemon designs?
Yes.
I only had for me there was only like one issue. For the most part, I liked every live action CGI version of the Pokemon. It's just one little one that was like, ooh, you look a little funky. Gengar, to me, looked a little strange.
Yeah, Gengar was kind of ugly.
Can you explain which one that one is?
Okay, so he's like when we go into the underground fight sequence, there's I think it's a Blastoise
the
fighting
one that beats
this
Blastoise in the fight.
Yeah, the ghost, kind of like the purplish, kind of weird.
Yeah.
His smile like looks different in like his his cartoon form than it does in the live CGI form, and that I was like, all you had to do is bring the smile down a little bit and not make the front teeth so big, and it could work. But for some reason, they decided not to do that. They decided to make it weird and funky, and I don't know why. And obviously, the best version, the best both like that. Like is most faithful to the original and looks really good as Bulbasaur. I think is the one that looks the best. Flareon is a close second. Even though we only saw it for a little bit, I like that little hair hair flip that it does.
Floofy.
It's so floofy. But yeah, so just Gengar for me is the biggest issue where I was like, ooh, I actually don't like how you look. Whereas everybody else, I was like, I like how you look, or I'll get used to how you look. That Pokemon, I just was like, I reject you.
Yeah, I'm not. Gengar's eyes just will haunt me, which I guess is the point since he is a ghost Pokemon, so it's fine, TM. Alex, tell me. What did you
Try to
think?
describe them instead of naming
Yeah,
them.
describe them, and because I know that you're not super familiar, so just
Well, I know the name of the one I want to praise. Like, I'll say that, like, of the ones that I recognize, they all look pretty. They seem well translated from their animated form to their CGI form. One that like stands out to me is Ludicolo. I think that's how you say it. But like, I have pictures of him on Google Images, and like here he seems like a very light green, happy, kind of tall. But like in the movie, they make him so grimy, and like he's perfect for the role they give him, which is like a bartender in like the dark part of the city, and he's just like very low to the ground, and he shouts. So like they make him like look all messy and stuff. And I think that's just a great design for like that kind of a character. Like the role that they give him is perfect with the design that he has, and also he just screams like at like a bar. So I really liked him. He was fun looking. I would hang out with Ludicolo.
Dylan, what do you think?
Bulbasaur is the best one by far. I think the scene with the Bulbasaurs is the best scene in the movie. There's not even anything story interesting happening. They're just so fantastic.
I think they're very clean, right? Like there's not too much difference from what its original design to what it looks like in the movie.
I mean,
right?
yeah, and I think well, so in general, I will say I think I'm not. If you take Detective Pikachu, how that looks in the movie in isolation. I don't think it looks as good or as cute as like normal Pikachu.
Oh my God,
disagree.
Shut up.
Excuse me, I'm not done. The point being that in the context of this movie's world, they all look really good. Like, so I'm not even the biggest fan of the way the furry things look, but it really integrates well into the world is the point. So I think that's like the general point to make about the designs. And I'll say Eevee. I could not really discern what the Eevee looked like because it was that's how you can tell Bill Nye is the villain, because Eevee is like the cat that the villain's petting when they walk in to see him. And only there for 2 seconds before it evolves into Flareon and is only used as a prop to further the theme of evolution in the movie. Of course, you have to have Eevee if you're talking about evolution. How dare you? Eevee is more important than just evolving. Eevee is valid on its own, and we needed Eevee to be the star of this movie, and I was very upset.
Wow.
So you are against the quiz made about what your evolution is, right?
That's fine, though.
Oh, okay.
Eevee should be an answer to that as well.
You're allowed to commodify the evolution when you enjoy and can interact with it.
It's an important aspect
not good
of
enough.
Eevee that Eevee evolves.
I understand.
But also Eevee on its own.
I understand.
I'm not there for it being there for a few seconds. Eevee is the sequel. Detective Eevee is the sequel.
Detective Raichu.
Well, I mean, aren't we furthering the Bill Nye character by evolving Detective Pikachu into Detective Raichu?
Is Bill Nye gonna break out of jail? Is my
I guess so.
I will say I was very disappointed that he did not die. I have in my notes.
I had sympathy for him.
We know that they didn't. People and Pokemon, they never die in this world. They just faint.
This movie doesn't talk about it a lot, but him being like physically disabled, and him wanting to like go into a Pokemon so he can move around and stuff. I was very sympathetic to that. I thought that kind of worked.
Yeah, it's definitely a great like character motivation, and it works. I was just like kind of expecting him to fall like a Disney death, but that didn't happen. So.
Oh, can I say one thing that I forgot to mention?
Yes.
So, it's like I love and hate how they nailed this Pokemon, but Ditto, when Ditto turns into Lucy and still has those eyes, I'm like,
it was great.
This is horror. This is horror. We have crossed the line
it.
into a different genre. It was amazing, but also I needed to look away. I couldn't, but I needed to look away because that was. Wow.
Also, the same thing where like I think Ditto is is pretending to be the brother of Bill Nye at the time, and like he takes off the sunglasses for the first time, and you see the beady eyes, like
Yeah, and that's
Pokemon
like
Company is obsessed with Ditto, and they like sell all the Ditto version plushes of everything, so it totally makes sense.
I can't believe they made Ditto the villain.
I know they're gonna crashing all the merch now.
It's a perfect henchman.
The Ditto stocks are going way down. Rip. Andy, what do you think about Pokemon?
I'm kind of in the same camp as Dylan in that, like, I don't think a lot of these Pokemon are intentionally cute, but just the way they all work in the world, in that, like, the world is really built around how these Pokemon look, it's just great, because I just think it'd be so easy to like look at these characters and look at them and be like, this doesn't fit in the world we're in. But like, there's never a point where they take me out of it. Like, I completely buy the fact that this world is real, and that's more important than whether I like individual Pokemon. That said, I do really like a lot of the ones I see. Like, Pikachu does look fuzzy and holdable, which is obviously the goal. And I really, really like Ludicolo. Like Alex said, Ludicolo, just yelling Ludicolo is really funny. And like I mentioned earlier, Growlithe, like every time I see Growlithe, I just buy into the fact that that's just a good pupper, just walking around the city with its buddy. And I love it so much. Yeah, but I don't think any of that even like the Pokemon just fit. Like Mr. Mime is horrifying, but I believe that he fits into this world.
Same. I read an article that came out yesterday that the Pokemon Company didn't really want Mr. Mime in this film.
Who can blame them?
Because
But
they don't know what Mr. Mime is.
But like that was possibly like the best scene in the movie, and I was dreading the Mr. Mime
I
scene
think
coming.
it was the best scene. It was
Honestly,
way better
it was
than it should
really
have been,
good,
but
yeah.
I don't think it was the best. But yeah, it might have been the most cleverly written. I get that's true.
And, like, his shoulders are made out of dodgeballs, and his hands are made out of, like, foam fingers. It's just, what a wild ride.
I think we should talk about Psyduck. I think we haven't.
Yeah, we haven't really
Oh, yeah.
mentioned Psyduck. Psyduck is the unsung hero of this film. That is my take on it. He does a lot, and he is important, and he is valid, and I love him. But I don't like how he says his voice, because...
Psyduck?
Yeah, it's just like that, and that just breaks my brain, but that's neither here nor there. What'd you think about Psyduck, guys?
I mean, I loved him. He was cute, and yeah, there's the moment where like he puts up his foot to get massaged by Pikachu.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, like I'm the boss around here, you know. So like,
Power move, yeah.
yeah, he's asserting his dominance there. So yeah, I think Psyduck has its moments. I'm trying to. But like the problem is, I don't think he has like specific moments, but because like the one time he gets to do his attack is in the middle of that meaningless sequence
Yeah,
where
it
they're
doesn't
running
end up
down
mattering.
the mountain. So like he doesn't get to do something important in the movie, really.
They made a big deal of it though.
Yeah, Psyduck is truly, he needs to have his day in the sun.
You know that speaking of that, like that scene would have worked so much better if like the Greninja were also like trying to survive like the whole thing too, but they just like disappeared as soon as
Yeah,
all this
they
stuff-
should have kept the Greninja going. I really agree
Yeah.
with
To me, there's just too much tongue play.
Did
So-
you like lick a tongue at
that.
the
Yeah,
beginning?
Lickitung.
Lickitung
Oh, man.
gives him a big old kiss in the beginning of the movie.
I read an article earlier that said the Pokemon Company didn't like the lick-a-tongue scene.
I wouldn't if I were them either, because it's really weird.
Look, they can't. They gave Lickitung an evolution, right? Like, why?
Yeah, licky licky.
Licky.
So Lickitung gives him a big old kiss, and then the Greninja, their scarves are their tongues, and like, what is it, like saliva? When they break out of their whole like, what do you call
Yeah,
it?
there's like some dripping. Like this is a very wet movie, man.
It is.
Like, they're like fall in a river too. So
I don't like
yeah.
that. How do they eat? Do they taste things? I don't know. Why are their tongues so big? I'm not a fan of that. That's just a general Pokemon take from Sam, but that's neither here nor there. My favorite Pokemon in this movie, Detective Pikachu, obviously. I'm in love with him. He is my son. Growlithe. Growlithe has always been my fave. So I've really appreciated all the stray Growlithes just hanging out.
Yeah.
Squirtle was ugly. Sorry.
Squirtle,
Wow.
don't you dare! Don't you
Wow.
dare diss Squirtle!
He was ugly! So was Charmander!
Did you not?
No,
What?
Charmander. Okay,
What?
Charmander was great. Come on. Both
This
of them
is-
were fine.
This isn't like bashing the quality of animation, because I thought all of them looked really like they looked immersive inside of their world and they looked like they belong there. I'm just saying, like, I personally don't find what's an animal in real life, like spiders.
Turtles.
I don't think turtles are fine. Spiders, I don't think they're very cute. Same with Squirtle and Charmander. I don't think they're
But
very
like
cute.
Squirtle is like a turtle.
He is, but he looks like a baby turtle, like a baby,
That's cute.
a human baby
But
mixed
there was
with
like
a turtle.
like near a scene at the end of the movie when like there's actual human Ryan Reynolds and like hugging his son, I couldn't focus because there's one Squirtle that's waddling across the entire scene, and it was so adorable, just waddling across the.
Squirtles are putting out all the fires. It's so good.
Yeah, at the beginning there's that news footage. They're just like spitting little waters out of their mouth.
You know what? People who aren't cute can also do good things. So
Wow.
that's my take.
I
also thought
think
Charizard kind of looked a mess, but you know.
But I mean, yeah.
I think the Apoms I think were good, not the bad version, but like the normal.
Yeah.
Oh,
version.
Apom was horrifying. They're like tail hands, like ugh.
I like the Treco wasn't in a lot of it, but
Trico.
Treco, yeah, Trico. It's a dumb
He
name.
was there.
But I thought there was a random inclusion.
There was a
I
lot
liked
of
it.
slacking. Like in the
Yeah,
background.
It was like I was like, is that a slacking in the booth? But yeah, I
They
think
did like 3 seeds.
I like Togepi was at one point. Was good.
Yeah.
And what was the other one I'll mention? But we gotta go through every single one. Oh, what about the Snubble?
Oh my
I
God.
don't know about that. I'm
Is
with Tim on
that,
that one.
the chief of police's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
one?
Yeah, the Detective
The pink
Pikachu
one.
is.
It growls a lot. That's its one move.
It's valid.
I was kind of sad that there wasn't more Purloin. Like, there's Purloin in the bar, like drinking some milk, but like that's really it. There's not like more of that. There's not a lot of cats.
Speaking of the bar, Jigglypuff, you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Apparently the singing was actually the original from the anime by Rachel Lillis, who was Jigglypuff's voice and Misty's voice.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that there was more in the trailers of Jigglypuff than there was in the movie. Like, they had a whole thing where Jigglypuff gets mad in the trailer, but in this movie it was just Jigglypuff singing.
We need
She does
a
get mad. She gets mad at him for sleeping.
Shouldn't draw on
it's
his
like
face
one
though.
shot, like
Yeah, like in yeah.
Magikarp and Gyarados, but
Oh,
Magikarp
yeah,
specifically.
Oh
Magikarp
my
was the
God.
best.
Okay, answer me this.
Yeah.
It's like to evolve, Pikachu says it just needs a little kick. All it does
That's
is
not how
just
that
like
works.
toss
Okay,
him
so
for, like,
here's the thing about Magikarp. You typically get it around level 5, and you in the games anyway, and you have to evolve it to level 20 to get it to Gyarados, and most of that time, it only has Splash, which is a worthless move, so you either have to use X Experience Share, which is worthless in the beginning, in like the first like couple games until Gen 6, by the way. You have to put it in the front of your party, and then swap it out so it gets some experience, and it isn't worth it to me. I'm not a stan. I reject this.
So you're saying I can't just pick up a fish and throw it in front of me and it'll turn into a sea dragon?
Yes, that is exactly what you can
Darn.
Up and Gyarados are the best.
This movie lied to me.
So I think, although I thought the Torterras looked really cool, even though
Yeah.
Yeah.
the whole thing of them being big was like
They
obvious
big.
and stuff. But yeah,
Just like that one episode of the anime. where
Like,
they
that
were-
was the biggest Chekhov's gun ever, when there's like, they're not that big. I'm like, okay, how big are they going to be later?
The whole thing is Torterra thing. But yeah, Pokemon, man. We all live in a Pokemon world, don't we?
Yeah.
I agree. So one thing I would like to bring up is Lucy. So
Okay.
Lucy is the secondary protagonist. I don't know what you would call her. Love interest. Who's to say? Really one of the only female characters.
yeah,
In
I
the
rant
film.
about this.
Yeah. What do you think, Dylan? What do you have to say?
I think this movie is really sexist. I think that this movie barely passes the Bechdel test.
I don't
which
think it
is
does
like,
that at all, does it?
Lucy at one point talks to a female reporter for
Oh,
5 seconds in
okay.
a scene which I felt like was included just to pass the Bechdel test, which is like the bare minimum.
Mhm.
Lucy is like way undercharacterized, and I don't know why she's the love interest. Why does Tim have feelings for her? It doesn't do anything in the movie. Like, there's no reason to include those feelings. The only thing I can think of is that, like, okay, Detective Pikachu was his dad the entire time, so it's like father-son bonding over girls. Like, maybe that's what they're thinking, but it's also only in retrospect. There's no reason to make him attracted to. It was just like attractifying her. Like, she's valid on her own. Like, she's like in theory a good character, but we didn't build on her enough. And there's like no other female characters. There's the female scientist, but she's only there in flashbacks.
Yeah.
So this movie is just, I mean, if you think sexist is too strong, it's extremely male perspective the entire.
Well, and I'll bring up 2 specific moments. First of all, the one way to take us off sent is to like portray the brother as like very evil, and like one way they do that is like, oh, by the way, change your fashion. It's like that's like a just like a okay, that's like a hammer. Like, oh, this person is a bad person because he's commenting on fashion of the female in the movie. And then later, also when the Ditto turns into her, and like Justice Smith has to do the line of, "I'm not afraid to punch the person I'm in love with." It's like, oh yeah, punching a woman.
He says the person I'm attracted to.
Yeah, person I'm attracted to.
But like,
yeah.
well, why is he attracted? Yeah. Something I was thinking of is the comparison to Spider-Verse, because the same thing happens there where there's feelings, but it's not paid off. And I feel like that movie was like fine and good, and it's like, okay, cool, they didn't pay it off, cool, it exists. But in this movie, I was like, why did the feelings exist in the first place? So I was trying to figure out why there's that difference in reaction I had. I don't know if anyone has ideas.
Because Spider-Verse like is a lot more complex, and it makes sense. Like there's like not time to sit on it. Like it makes sense that they had other things they thematically wanted to do. This movie has so few moving parts that it's like, why did we spend time on this if we didn't just write a different thing here? Because Spider-Verse, like, it's just going through so much, and at the end you're just like, we need to do stuff with Miles still. We need to still finish his arc when he doesn't end up having that kiss with Gwen. Here it's like Tim's arc, like, what is it if it's like there's nothing for Tim to have?
That's not true. His arc is his dad.
But I mean, like, that's it,
that's the main part of the story, is finding his dad, fixing the relationship with his dad. The romance is subplot. It's a subplot, one. It's not one that's supposed to be paid off. I mean, you're not going to get them making out and getting married at the end of it. It's just, like, I think honestly you guys are putting way too much weight on this romance. I think it was just a simple, like, flirtation that happened. Like, he shows attraction. It was, like, it's just, you know, the two of them, like,
I'm not sure what it added is my point.
Yeah, like, because they mentioned it being attraction, like, immediately. It was really weird.
To me, I'm kind of in the middle here, because while I did think it detracted a lot from Lucy's character, especially, like, oh, she's just here to be a love interest. At the same time, it just kind of felt like, oh, we have a guy character and a girl character, and they're around the same age. You know what that means, he. And they just threw it in because they just had these two characters who were the same age and opposite gender, and it's like, okay, why not? I don't think it's, like, the worst thing ever, but at the same time, it didn't do that much for me. You know, and like what Beatrice was saying, it obviously wasn't going to be paid off. Lucy, I guess, gets her comeuppance at the end, in a way. Like, she gets promoted from intern to reporter, and, you know, it's good for her. Feminism hashtag. I love Lucy a lot. I thought her character was so great. I loved her introduction, just being like this fast-talking, sassy, like, person who's like trying to get the scoop, and I really like that. And I like that she mentions that, oh yeah, I do listicles. What's the top 10?
I think the listicle, the top 10 cutest. I think the listicles thing was the funniest in-universe joke that they made with this Pokemon world. Like, I thought that moment was really
Spoiler, they're all cute.
Yeah.
That's true. Except for the ones that aren't. And I don't know, I really liked her and her determination and her will. Like, she didn't really seem too weighed down by Tim. If anything, Tim needed her. And she was just kind of doing her own thing. But at the same time, you know, it's like her and Rita Ora, who plays the doctor who's in charge of the Mewtwo stuff, who are like the quote-unquote primary / only women in this movie, and that doesn't really bode too well for me. But, you know,
I agree that there needs to be more women in this, but I do think, like, if, say, Lucy's entire arc was just surrounded by this romance, then I'd agree with your criticisms about, like, oh, the romance has destroyed her character. But I didn't walk out of this movie thinking, oh my god, her and Tim are meant to be, or oh my god, she's been so obsessed with Tim. She had her own thing. She had her own problems, and she didn't show that much interest in Tim. She was just kind of like, oh, you're kind of piquing my interest, but I want to get this story. This is my main priority. My goal is to get this story. And I also thought it was really cool how Tim was like, hey, like, this is your story. You go tell it. I'm going to go do my own thing, because you're the one that did all this. You get the credit. So it's like, I don't know. I think you guys are being really harsh on this romance when it's actually not that big of a deal.
Yeah, so I don't think they should have paid it off. That's not my point. I think like including it is just furthers the male perspective of viewing her through an attraction lens would be my point. Like why does that exist? It on its own it's not a big deal, yeah, but in the context of like the movie also doesn't have many female characters and they don't do much. It's like just furthers the movie's male perspective.
I guess also just something I'll put is I think a lot of the reason that they hammer this home is to insert like relationship jokes, right? Like that the whole attraction thing is like a Pikachu being like, have you ever talked to women, and like him being awkward around talking with her. Then they have that thing in the bar where they like hit their heads and like Pikachu is like, oh, you're into her. And they have the thing in the car where it's like, oh, women like being people who think responsibly and things like that. So I think there is actually not much in the way of romantic chemistry. I think the reason it feels more is because they do try to mine as many jokes as possible out of Pikachu shipping them.
It's in service of the Detective Pikachu.
Yeah, but like the actual chemistry between the characters, I think that there isn't that much.
I think that's my issue with Lucy, that like it feels to me like she exists to do two things solely, and one is to be to be there for those jokes, like you were saying, Alex. Like she's there to be a relationship thing for Tim and to be a thing for jokes about relationships, and two, to be something to make jokes about things that are very, I guess, millennial almost, because like she talks about like, I'm an unpaid intern, and like I get it, but like those quote unquote jokes like are definitely targeted people like my age, our age, like but it like took me out of the movie. Like I don't want this in a Pokemon movie. I don't want to be reminded about unpaid internships when I'm watching a movie about Pokemon.
Same.
Personally.
I kind of felt it was really not heavy-handed, but just...
And again, I don't know if that's fair, but that's how I felt about it. And again, that's not her fault as a character or an actress. It's just that's what it felt like they wrote her character to be.
I mean, I am a journalism graduate who is in an unpaid internship. Like, I am like the most her as possible, and I loved that. Well, I was like, I'm seeing myself in a Pokemon world. This is fantastic.
Well, I'm saying, Beatrice, I understand that's a real thing. I want to make sure I'm clear.
Beatrice, would you have a Psyduck? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I would. I feel like Psyduck is like the one who would remind me not to get that stressed, because if I do, then they'll get stressed and then they'll like have like a brain aneurysm, and I'm like, no, don't. So
how could you have a Psyduck if you just yell all the time?
Psyduck would be so
you do know that me speaking isn't me texting, right? You do realize this. Sometimes people don't realize. Sometimes people tell me to speak up when I'm not in front of a microphone. I just want you to know there are different sides of me than just caps lock.
Are there?
Yes.
I don't know.
Wow. Just kidding.
I have one stray observation that doesn't really matter in the long run. It feels weird that Tim has Pikachu, who, through most of the movie, we don't know is his dad. And Lucy has Psyduck. And it just calls to me to Ash and Misty, who also have a Pikachu and a Psyduck, which... Okay. Whatever.
It definitely felt like it was playing off that.
Yeah. Like, that's why she has a Psyduck, essentially.
There is one other female character we have not mentioned. Suki Waterhouse plays a silent female bodyguard who turns out to be Ditto.
That's a Ditto!
She's got those pink gloves. Like, it's just before we figured out that she was a Ditto, I really liked her.
Ditto was also genderless, by the way.
Okay, so they were interesting until they revealed themselves to be.
I think the most heinous crime of this movie is that they make out Ditto to be a really strong Pokemon when in reality they're not.
It seems so OP, right? Like,
yeah. Wait, they're not?
No,
they don't actually do that? They can't just turn into different Pokemon?
No, not really, no.
Aww.
There's
in
quite
the game,
remember,
Dittos do imitate like random NPCs, I guess.
Also, remember that they had Pokemon that they had experimented on. So what I assumed from that was that Ditto was someone that they had. And
I think they say that in the movie too.
I think that's what I got out of it.
Yeah.
But like the fact, like Ditto in the games, Alex cannot like transform from a flying Pokemon to a buffalo like mid attack. Like that's not a thing Ditto can do.
Yeah,
it seemed pretty OP. But one related point, while I do think the movie is like pretty male perspective sexist, I do think it's like very racially diverse. So that's a point in its
Dylan,
favor.
I was about to bring that up. How did you
transitioning.
know?
I don't know. Is there an outline? I'm not looking at it. No, it's a great outline. I think Justice Smith's parents being biracial couple is multi. Yeah, it's that really plays. Like you see grandmother, right, and then you see Ryan Reynolds at the end. I think that's pretty powerful. And then also just a lot of the supporting cast is very diverse.
Yeah, I thought that was definitely a great thing, and I know Andy had brought it up when we were still getting trailers. Like, oh, like we see people signing, like speaking in sign language on the sidewalk, and a lot of the background characters are really diverse. And we have Detective Yoshida, who's played by Ken Watanabe, and Justice Smith, of course. And we just have all these characters, but you still have Bill Nye and Chris Gere, who is playing his son, and Catherine Newton, who are white. And diversity. TM, it's a thing. What do the rest of you think about that?
I thought it was very. I caught on to it like really quickly, like that. Like I was expecting him to be. I was expecting to be less diverse than the trailers were showing off, but it actually was just as diverse as the trailers said it was. Like, 'cause every time we met a new character, except for like the villains, they were always like non-white. We were just meeting characters that were like the people in the fight arena, the people in the, like we met the doctor at the facility with Mewtwo wasn't a man, it was a woman. Like I thought stuff like that, like they just kept doing that over and over again, and when you do it enough times, it's just like it doesn't feel like a big thing, and it was great. Like I just felt like there was just everyone was just people, and it was I don't know, they really stuck the landing on this for me. Like they just kept being diverse.
Beatrice, do you have any thoughts?
I agree. It was great. It was refreshing. And I wish more films could do this and realize that, hey, it's not scary. It's not a big deal. It's just a reflection of our world.
Yeah, I definitely think that this is a great step forward, especially for family films, TM, and including a more diverse cast, whether it be race, gender, Pokemon, etc. I think it's this great thing, and I was really happy that they cast Justice Smith as the lead, because he just blew it out of the water, and just magic. Mwah. Ryan Reynolds as his dad, yeah. But now we see why they couldn't have Danny DeVito, I guess, because they needed...
That's
Danny
not
DeVito could have been his dad at the end. That would have been good.
I would have loved.
Danny DeVito could have been like his grandpa.
No, Sam. Kate was talking to me like it would have been amazing if Pikachu had Ryan Reynolds' voice when he was Pikachu, but as soon as he came out of Pikachu, it was Danny DeVito. Like it just was a completely different person.
It just keeps talking.
Yeah, and I would have loved that.
They had to have the sex appeal, I guess, of Ryan Reynolds.
I will say,
Ryan Reynolds less attractive. Like he had like a second chin, and like he looked very dad bod.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like he's really rocking the dad look there. Like he's got like the very peppery beard,
I like this
little salty beard. So,
admittedly, I had to look up after the movie. Like that was my first thought. I need to look up how old Ryan Reynolds is in comparison to Justice Smith, because I did not believe he was old enough to be his dad. He's 19 years old in Justice Smith, so it's fine, I guess.
Hot dad.
Well, Justice Smith's supposed to be 21 in this movie.
Yeah, so Ryan Reynolds could be...
It's not too far off.
I don't. He's old. He's in his 40s now. Who cares? It's a movie.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Well, wrapping up this discussion, is there anything else that you guys would like to speak about that tickled your fancy, tickled your unhappiness, that you felt in your jellies? To use the phrase from the movie.
I just want to say that the brilliance of having Pikachu be the one to reference the theme song was brilliant. And not only that, because also like different regions have different theme songs. So I was always curious. I was like, would they do? I was fully expecting them to completely not reference the song, because I thought there was no way that they'd be able to incorporate it, because different countries have different versions. Like the Japanese anime had different opening song, so I was like, there's no way they're going to be referenced. But then the brilliance of having it be whoever voices Pikachu is the one who makes the reference. Now you can localize it. So then the Japanese voice actor can sing the Japanese song. The Spanish voice actor can sing the Spanish song. It is so perfect the way that they were able to weave this in there. And it's such a small detail, but it's something I so deeply appreciate, because hearing Pikachu sing that song like made me want to join him. I didn't, but it made me want to. And that to me was like the moment that happens, like I know that was like a very like oh, he's crying, he's alone, and that's when he realized and stuff, but like I couldn't stop smiling.
Oh no, that was totally a joke. My theater was in tears like at that scene.
I thought you meant different Pokemon regions when you started talking about
Yes,
them.
they built.
I was like,
No,
is there a different Sinnoh
No,
song
no,
from
no,
the Kanto
no,
one?
no.
I haven't watched anime that far.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
definitely called this, by the way. I definitely said Ryan Reynolds is going to sing this theme song, but I think I said he was going to sing it over the credits, which was wrong.
Pokemon.
Apparently they added that like in post filming.
Oh.
Things they added. Yeah.
Also, the theme for the news network that Lisa works at is the instrumental of the.
Yeah, I was so excited for
Me
them to
too.
start singing, and they didn't.
Yeah, it was just the da da da. It was just that. Dylan, do you have any final thoughts, final observations, etc.?
No, I think we covered everything I have in my notes here. Oh, I didn't. The jellies thing. I think the callback was manufactured with the jellies thing.
Did you feel it in your jellies?
No, I didn't really like that.
Did you think that this was a replacement for them referencing the anime 4Kids dub in which Brock would call rice balls jelly donuts?
No, I don't think they went that deep. But
that?
maybe. I mean, there's Pokemon fans that made it. I don't know. Just final thoughts. Yeah, enjoyed it. Criticisms were expounded upon here, but I think it was really fun.
Yeah, it was a good time. I agree. Andy, what do you have final thoughts on, if anything?
I had something, and I think it's gone now, so I guess that's it, and it'll be lost to the void.
Oh god, now that you said that, there's this one thing that was on my mind, and I don't remember what. Hot takes on cold foods. Let's do it right now. That was what on my mind.
Oh! Before you do, I remember. It was about one Pokemon we didn't mention.
Yes.
Oh god, it's on the tip of my tongue. Oh, what's the name of it? Crap. Damn, it's gone. All right, food.
All right. While I ruminate on hot take cold foods, you think about that. Coffee. I hate coffee so much. It is the worst. It is bean juice that tastes bad, and
Agreed.
that really is a detriment to my love of Detective Pikachu. In addition to the bad jokes about dating, etc.
Coffee is fine. I will say, if you're drinking 3 to 5, if you're drinking more than 3 cups in a day, you should probably get that checked.
I also
But,
don't think it's
once
healthy for a
day-
Pikachu to drink coffee.
Yeah, although small credit to them for not going for any hyper jokes. Like, it's just he likes coffee. Like, we don't need to do it like, oh, hey, run fast now because I'm drinking coffee. No, like that feels like a thing that a lot of kids movies do with coffee.
I think it's bad because he says in the movie, like, his lungs are the size of grapes. Like, it's bad.
But it's a human, so it's fine.
Don't let...
Yeah.
Andy, were you going to mention Moralol? Is that the one you're going to talk about?
I wasn't. I remember what you mentioned. I was going to say I hated the text they used. It was so stupid.
I thought it was so dumb.
They're making it Japanesey.
Yeah, but they made it unreadable. That's what they actually did.
And I was like, what the hell? What are they doing?
Choose one or the other. Like, there's scenes where they're in the city and it's actual, like, Japanese kanji, like, on, like, buildings and stuff. But then sometimes they use this weird English font that, like, kind of looks like kanji, and it's just completely unreadable. And I don't know why they did it. Like, just choose one or the other. There's no reason to combine them.
The title card of the movie is in that font, and it's like, oh, is this like why does this make me think of Godzilla?
Honestly, it made me think, like, The Last Airbender. Didn't they have, like, some kind of weird Asian-inspired font?
I think the worst part is that, like, I literally thought a plot point would be that the thing that they had would not be R. I thought that, like, he just didn't know Japanese and it would be something else. But it turned out to.
Yeah, how would they be able to read the R? That's a good point.
Like, what does R even stand for? Like, why'd they even choose?
I thought it was.
It is from the
related.
game. So
it is.
whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my take was, oh, this is Team Rocket related.
Yeah.
La la, but it wasn't. So.
We were robbed of live action Team Rocket. I mean, honestly.
We really were. I would watch a live action Team Rocket movie, like nothing else for.
Well,
that's the gritty spin off of the
Yes.
live action.
They
Team Rocket,
did
R-rated
say
movie.
during the Mewtwo sequence in the beginning that, you know, they captured Mewtwo after that whole accident in Kanto, like however many years ago. So it's implied that that whole universe exists in this one. So it's
Did
fine.
they even mention the region we're in?
No. It's just Rhyme City.
I think
There's a poster for the
canonically
Sinnoh.
an
There's
alternate
a
universe, I think.
there's a poster for the Sinnoh Championship, so I assume it's
Yep.
close to Sinnoh.
It's not yet not a known region. Yeah.
There was a point in the. I'd say it was really bold. They started with Cubone. They started with the Pokemon that canonically is about crying over its dead
Oh,
mother.
God! I hated that. Because
I think
Tim's
they-
mom is dead.
The mom's skull being worn by Cubone.
Yeah, that was a weird fact to mention. They said during the video that they mentioned all the regions and said this is created specifically outside of that, I think, or something like that.
Okay.
I mean, there's always going to be new Pokemon regions.
Well, yeah, they also add one on every 3 years.
Like, you
Yeah.
could have started with Eevee, Dylan. This could have been Eevee instead of Cubone.
No, they had to get a point the cross of the dead mom.
Yeah, why'd they do Cube? Yeah, is that the reason they did Cubone?
Yes.
It's weird.
Or maybe they just like, let's pick what the Pokemon that looks the most harmless, right?
But I mean, Eevee looks harmless.
I guess.
Yeah, but Eevee wouldn't get mad. Like, that's the thing. They needed Cubone. You needed Cubone.
Yeah,
He was
Cubone.
perfect.
Just
Cubone was perfect.
literally.
Cubone is iconic enough, I guess.
I guess.
It's an important part of the.
God, and
early
the
game.
meaning of the Ditto turning the Cubone and knocking Tim's fingers off the building at the end. Oh, the
yeah.
allegories.
Rip.
Rip. Alex, what are your thoughts, observations, etc.?
Okay,
Lastly.
so the music we haven't really talked about. For the most part, it's kind of generic, at least to me, not knowing like what is references and what isn't. But I will say like there are a few moments like for when they enter the city, and I think like a little bit in the middle of the final fight where it goes like really synthy, like almost to the point like where it reminds me of Tubular Bells from The Exorcist. So like those like little moments is like, oh okay, the whole movie should be music like this, like go really heavy on the synth and like make this feel like video game music, and I feel like they didn't lean into that enough. So that is one mark against the music. But like those little like there are like 2 tracks on the soundtrack that I'll probably like listen to, and then the rest is just kind of like nothing. But so that the Mr. Mime scene, we briefly referenced it, but like let's just say the ending of it pouring gasoline on Mr. Mime and then like cutting away.
That was so mean.
As he makes
It was so
the
dark.
fire. It's so great. Like that is like the more Ryan Reynolds-y humor that I was expecting out of this movie, and like I think that it cuts off perfect. Like so that's like that's a good scene from beginning to end. Like they cut it off perfectly there, and like I think Pikachu at some point is like, "Ooh yeah, I like this." So like so that's part of what makes the Mr. Mime scene great, and I think that we haven't praised Mr. Mime enough for being a good piece in the beginning of the movie.
Just a little.
And finally, there was one other. Oh yeah, just one more bad joke that we need to get out of the way. In the middle of that running down the mountain scene that is actually a giant Pokemon, Pikachu just in the middle of it's like, how can you not believe this is climate change? And it's like,
Boy, yeah. I didn't roll my
sure.
eyes, but I sighed at that.
Yeah,
one.
that was one of the like biggest groan jokes. Like again, it's like in the middle of this, and like you can tell that this is a Pokemon related thing. It's just like feels very like you hammered in there.
But I'd
So-
rather
climate
Pokemon
change in the
give me
Pokemon
groaners
world?
over and over again. Like honestly, give me groans.
Are we concerned about rising sea levels in the Pokemon universe? Like, should
Why?
we?
That kind of doesn't make sense to me because Pokemon's really into like.
Are Pokemon species going extinct from climate change? Like,
Probably.
Oh my god, that's the next game, Dylan.
Yeah, that's gonna be in a Sword and Shield.
oh no! But since we keep mentioning it, I saw in a video with Ryan Reynolds that they pitched him on him being Detective Pikachu originally by sending him early animation of Pikachu stitched over with his dialogue from Deadpool. So like that actually was a thing that they from early on.
Really?
Yeah.
Fine.
And I think I saw an article that was something like we have enough outtakes to make an R-rated movie if we felt like
they
it or
should.
something. Like
Yeah.
I'd be kind of it. It would probably be a train wreck, but I would be
I
kind
want
of
it.
interested.
I just want the seeds because I know that they exist of just Ryan Reynolds just improving like over this instead of his actual lines.
Ryan Reynolds. He was fine. TM. That's what
I
have
just
to say
think, I don't
about
think he had a
that.
lot to work with. I think his writing for Pikachu was disappointing in a lot of places because like I don't think they let him really like do whatever he wanted. Like the scenes where he could, like in the Mr. Mime scene, definitely felt like more like him than some of the other ones. Personally,
You just gotta be a dad sometimes, you know.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like honestly, like I think he did the dad scenes well. Like that moment where like the chief of police had told him that it shows them the video that he's dead, and then they're outside the police station. He's just like, I'm damn sure your dad would be proud of you, sort of thing. Like I think he pulls that off. Like, and I don't associate Ryan Reynolds with doing like emotional scenes, but like he did it, so good for him.
I was like really biased against him being like this cute Pokemon, like his voice coming from it, and I think he sold me on the sympathy of that character. I feel like that was the biggest thing with me.
Hmm.
I'm Detective Pikachu.
Also, question: does Ryan Reynolds at the end of the movie remember his time as Pikachu?
Unclear.
Is that reincorporated into his memories?
That would be
I think it's
terrible.
unclear, honestly.
Like probably, right? He would remember.
I think so, because I mean Lucy says to Psyduck after they like demorph, she's like, let's never do that again. So I think she does. I think he would remember.
If you
Okay.
were to be trapped in the body of a Pokemon, what Pokemon would it be?
I don't want to do this.
Okay. Okay, if you had a Pokemon best friend, who would it be?
Obviously, Eevee.
Well, yeah. Anybody else?
This is a tough question.
Andy,
Sam.
fix
This
the
is like
key
asking
thing.
my favorite color is.
I
He's
would.
the key thing. Or Growlithe for Andy.
Like Ditto would be the most useful.
Yeah, that's true. You could just get your Ditto to turn into anything you want.
I'd have Klefki. What are you talking about? I'd have Klefki.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Beatrice, do you have any Pokemon companions?
This is hard.
Well, you already said Psyduck earlier, didn't you?
Yeah, Psyduck, but I mean, if I could pick from any Pokemon,
If you could really
How dare you?
pick any Psyduck
You're saying
no, I
Psyduck's
mean I could
underwhelming.
have all Psyduck. I'd be happy with Psyduck, but I'm like,
Maybe this one's
Ninetales
better.
would be really cool.
Yeah, that was great.
I'd be really into having like a Squirtle. Squirtle would be really cool. I could keep going. I love them all. I want Mew.
You can have a team of 6. It's fine.
Okay,
Oh.
cool. So Psyduck, Ninetales, Mew,
Squirtle.
Squirtle, Pikachu, and I don't know. There's one that I'm probably forgetting, and I'll remember later.
While you think of the final one, just one final thought I have. I watched this in 4DX, and we were speaking this before the podcast, so you won't hear most of this. But just the one thing I want to say, they only used the smell feature in one scene. It's when the Bulbasaurs show up, and I think it was meant to be a grass scent, but I smelled weed. So the
They didn't.
Bulbasaurs
They
are
didn't
weed
do it when
Pokemon.
Pikachu farted.
No, I was very disappointed. The
Oh.
smell-o-vision
Oh.
features were very
should,
neglected.
You
You
would
should
be
get your money back.
disappointed at that.
I mean, I was paying for 4DX. I'd expect them to
No.
give me the full fart experience.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, gross.
So you didn't smell the silent but deadly. You didn't smell like
Also, like,
brimstone when he was lighting up those fake matches.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or
that's
like
terrible.
when Licky Tongue is like slobbering over, I wanted like wetness to fall on me,
Oh
but
my
that didn't
God.
happen. So that was
All right,
I felt
I'm gonna
I
stop.
felt
you there.
robbed.
You felt robbed. So my final thoughts. First off, my companion Pokemon I've been thinking about a lot. It would be Abra, because Abra could take me places, and we would be best friends, and he's so cute.
Is
Um,
Abra in this movie?
No.
No,
Oh,
I think Cadet. No, that was.
No, I don't think.
No, I don't
any
think
of
there's
them
any.
are there.
There's
that was
none.
an omission. They should have been there.
Yeah, the whole Abra, Kadabra, Alakazam line, they're wonderful.
Oh, they didn't include it because they didn't want it to step on like Mewtwo's toes with the psychic stuff, probably.
Yeah, they talked about an interview. They carefully picked one from each generation, one of each ability. Like they really spread it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
was,
well, type. Yeah, type. Yeah.
calculated. I don't like that Tim stays at the end, because he needs to go back to his home and quit his job and also clean out his apartment, end his lease, etc. He can't just stay there and just expect everything to be okay. He needs to go back and go get his stuff. I hate it when they do that in movies, by the way. So
You can just. Why can't you just call and talk to the landlord and then you send movers? Like
I don't know. Dylan, I've never done that because never mind. That's not possible in my mind. Let's just.
I mean, Tim was an insurance salesman in a small town. Did he really have that many possessions?
He
Wow.
could have like precious photos of his dead mother that he wants to have.
He would have that. Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I am saying on that. I really like the credits.
Yes.
Like the not like the black white scrolling credits, but the credits like directly after the movie where they did the game sprites from like the OG like Game Boy games, and they did artwork based off of Ken Sugimori's artwork, who has famously done most, if not all, of the concept work / designs, like final designs of all of the Pokemon. And I thought that was really cool. I really liked seeing like the little like anime style Justice Smith, and I thought that was really awesome, and that made me so happy.
And in the music, like the sound font of the music changed as it went from the Game Boy to like the manga look. It was really cool.
I thought it was so cool. I don't know if they give out like awards for best credit design, but that definitely deserves some sort of prop. So amen on that one. There was a ton of companies that worked on this movie. To give you like a brief rundown, since I did copy paste them all. Moving Picture Company, Frame Store, Image Engine, Rodeo FX, Instinctual FX. They did all the quote unquote visual effects, so thank you guys for the Pokemon looks. And Legendary, Warner Brothers, Pokemon Company, obviously, and Toho, ? Were involved in the production / distribution. Why not? Godzilla. He's a thing.
Toho also producing the Godzilla coming out.
Yeah, that was a trailer before the movie. So was the Sonic. And that's really the end comparison we have here, isn't it?
Yeah, because those Godzilla monsters are basically just giant Pokemon, right?
Okay. I'm glad you brought up Sonic, because I think...
We're going to end this discussion on Sonic.
No, this is important, because I think they played Sonic before this movie. I think Sonic's design actually boosted this movie, because I remembered how bad CG could look before seeing this movie.
Right. Sonic, any complaints of Detective Pikachu, the way, is he ugly, is he not, like, it's all gone when you look at Sonic, right? Like,
Yeah. And I think I don't know. I think it's because of that trailer. If the trailer wasn't in front of this movie, I might have been more inclined to be like, some of the designs are ugly. But I'm like, oh right, this is still really good.
Also, it's cool that they gave us cards before the movie.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. Last point on the movie before we get into the ending. This podcast is longer than the movie at this point.
It is.
Actually.
Sorry guys. Sorry Dylan. I know.
Oh
you're
my
probably
god.
I just checked the runtime.
So just really quick, what cards did you guys get before the movie?
Bulbasaur.
Of course you got Bulbasaur.
Well, everybody, to note, every pack had one Detective Pikachu card.
Should I do a live open? I haven't actually opened my pack.
Open it, yeah, open it.
Yeah, open it.
Okay, I'll be right back.
All right, while you do that, Andy, what'd you get?
I got the mushroom. What was it? Whatever it's
Moral.
called. Yeah, and Kate got Snubble.
Beatrice, what'd you get?
I didn't get a card.
Wow.
I'm very unhappy about that, Beatrice.
So I didn't
I
get it. I went to a screening so early that there were no cards.
Wow. I actually got 2 card packs for no reason. Like the usher just gave me 2 packs of cards.
You just knew.
Yeah, he knew it was my birthday yesterday when I saw this movie. By the way, it was also Andy's.
TBH.
Anyway, I got a Bulbasaur and I got Moral, and I thought that was very fitting because they are the true helpers in this movie, and they are pure. I thought that they were gonna heal Pikachu, but it was Mewtwo. Alex.
I also got 2 packs, so let's open them live here. Hopefully you're hearing the noise of
that's recorded.
Me opening them. So the first pack is a Detective Pikachu and a Morlul. That's the little mushroom one.
Yeah.
Okay.
To be honest, when that came up in the movie, I thought it was Squilbaby, but it wasn't.
It was.
Okay,
Yeah.
opening the second one. This one is a little harder to open for some reason. God damn. Open you. How do you people play trading card games? If these games are not even...
Alex, you're holding up the draft.
Do the outro while I open this.
Everyone stopped and is looking at you, and they're like,
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. No, I want you to open this card pack.
Okay, there we go. I used my teeth.
Well, Bebe is apparently in the movie. Also.
Yeah, that's what an
Yeah.
article says.
Okay, this one had a Detective Pikachu and a Snubbull.
Oh,
Snubbull?
yeah, Snubbull.
yeah,
Snubbull.
I'll
Okay,
get
that's the one I don't like. Does anybody want my Snubbull? Can we like trade
Why
cards
don't you
over
like
the
Snubble?
podcast?
Snubble's fine.
He just growls.
Alex, you would have a Snubble though.
Oh
But
my
Alex,
God.
you know what Snubble evolves into?
What?
Granbull.
A Granbull. It just gets even more like angry.
Yeah,
Levels
more
just
weird.
I
And
don't,
dumb.
I don't like anger. I want Pokemon to. I want them to live in a utopia where they can like just have normal jobs like crossing guards and
Rip.
Yeah.
doormen.
Dude, I loved that Machamp was just a crossing guard. Like, I was like, he's gonna be a construction guy or something. Like, no, he's just standing in the street, like, directing traffic with all his arms at once.
But also, why was Snorlax just like sleeping in the middle?
That's
of
just
the
what
game?
Snorlax does.
Snorlax is great.
That was that was a great reference, like a great subtle nod to the games. Like Snorlax sleeping in the middle of an intersection.
Yeah.
That was great.
Play the first gen or the remakes of the first gen if you want more information on that. And if you want more information on this podcast, you can find that out at overlyanimated.com. And you can join us on Discord to text chat about animation or Detective Pikachu if you're so inclined at overlyanimated.com/Discord. We also
By the
just
way,
talk
this
about
movie
Pokemon.
is like 30% animation, and we're not going to be regularly
God,
doing this. We just wanted to
Dylan.
talk about it.
Alright, Dylan made a concession because I begged him to.
There's
it was
going to be a lot of these
5%
questionable ones coming up, so we'll have to make some hard calls.
Yeah,
but
like the Lion King and...
Lion King's the opposite of this. It's going to be like 70% animation. That's a definite.
It's gonna be 100% animation. What are you talking
The
about?
backgrounds are live action.
It's
Yeah,
live
I
action
guess.
backgrounds.
Yeah.
It's like Dinosaur from 2000, and it's fine.
That movie, I always forget exists.
It does exist. But
probably
we do
more like-
have a live action channel to talk about live action things on our Discord. We also just talk about Pokemon a lot. Like, we're all big Pokemon fans. And we talk about, like, our teams and, like, whatever. And, like, our merch. So you can join that discussion if you want to on our Discord at overlyanimated.com/Discord, which I already said. And if you want to, you can support us via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Sorry, I'm reading. Thanks to all of our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Hope, aka Katara. And thanks, as always, to our patron executive producers, Ryan, Steve, Alex, Beatrice, Hugh, and Michael. Thanks, guys. Yeah, this is kind of a what would you call this? One-off sort of thing.
It's a major historic event that we
It
needed
is.
to cover, regardless of its animation status.
It's true, and as time goes on, and things like The Lion King comes out, etc., we might be doing other things. I don't know. Dylan's gonna kick my butt. Anyway, we also talk about other things, primarily animated shows these days. Star vs. the Forces of Evil, which is rounding out. Fruits Basket, which is an anime. Well, that's related, right? Other things. Yeah.
She-Ra. Finish that.
Well, yeah, we just finished She-Ra.
DuckTales and OKKO, which includes a card game that's probably parroting Pokemon.
The
Fruits basket.
yeah, I said
We already
Fruits
said
Basket.
that.
Oh, sorry.
What's the POW cards? Yeah.
Yeah, the POW cards, like those are an OKKO.
Beatrice
They're-
is busy with her side duck, trying to
Yeah.
calm it down.
Yeah.
No, I think
Oh, I
Beatrice.
figured out another Pokemon.
What was the other?
Oh my
Pokemon?
god.
So I'm changing the Pikachu for a Jolteon, and then my last Pokemon would be a Suicune. That would be really cool.
Okay, you can't have a legendary.
No, she has
I
two
have
legendaries
Mew.
since she said Mew.
I
Oh
have
my
Mew
gosh.
in there, and I can have Suicune. Don't tell me what to do. I can have them all. That's the whole point of Pokemon.
Yeah,
y'all.
gotta catch
'em
them all. That's the true spirit of Pokemon. Just
Catch all of our podcasts.
yeah, you can listen to this
On your
podcast
favorite
on
podcatcher.
any of your favorite podcatcher. Exactly. The true spirit of Pokemon is consumerism. So that's what we really learned during Detective Pikachu. Anywho, thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Mr. Mime.
Bye.
Bye.
Like,